It's Energumen opening up a clear advantage in the closing stages. A breath of fresh air over fences is going to stay at the helm of the 2 mile novices. Energumen by.
Boylesports has it all. Money back meetings every day. UK and Irish racing live streaming. Extra places and money back all losers offers. And a bet 10 get 40 welcome offer. Boylesports, this is betting.
So, hello and welcome back to the Champ.ie podcast and our GrandNational preview. Aintree Day 3, lads. Good start to the Aintree Festival. Plenty of winners banged out. Steve, we'll start with you. Famous Claremont, well advised. Zenta, you were very strong on him. Banbridge and Shishkin for myself. And the Golden Groome lands dancing on my own. It was a good first day, Steve, to the Aintree Festival.
It was nice to see Famous Claremont confirm the impression that he'd been given all season to me. As we highlighted on yesterday's podcast, I thought the conditions would suit him ideally. That dropping back to 2.5 was perfect for him. And for a hunter chaser, he's got that little bit of speed, and he certainly showed that. He absolutely dotted up in the end, always travelled well. And you would have to say one with a little bit in hand, but yesterday's conditions were absolutely perfect for him. It was just nice to see him confirm the theory, really, and that he actually did it in practice.
Absolutely. And Mr. Golden Groome, dancing on my own, congratulations to you. Russell Stanton has won himself a free bet because he landed 3 winners or more. Now, we were going to draw that a little bit later, but Russell, get in touch via Twitter or the DMs, or even down below. You can send us an email to champ.ie@gmail.com to claim your prize. Congratulations, Russell. Always very active in the comments. And anyone that is new around here, make sure to like the video and do subscribe to the channel for plenty more previews like this. But lads, going to kick on. It is Aintree Day 3. We're going to be looking ahead to the GrandNational. Some juicy price selections coming your way. But we're going to start with probably a simpler task, lads. The 145, the first race on Aintree Day 3. It is the Maghull Novices Chase, Grade 1, 6 runners. Well, it's all about Jambon here, really, isn't it, Steve?
Well, I assume that Banbridge won't run. He was still, when I looked last night, he was still in the decks, but having won yesterday, I can't see him taking part. And Jambon's going to be very, very short. As always, when I see a short price favourite, my initial reaction to that is try and get it beat. Can we get it beat? And try to see if there's any weaknesses with it. And really, you can't find it with Jambon. If he reproduces the Cheltenham performance, second to Fabiolo, that's the strongest novice 2 mile novice chase form that there is, then he's going to win. And I think if Banbridge comes out, he's going to be a 5-2, 3-1 on shot, isn't he? And
yeah, absolutely.
He deserves to be that price as well.
He does, and the thing about him as well is, I suppose, an official rating £7 clear. As you mentioned, that Formula El Fabiolo looks absolutely rock solid. And he's proven it last season as well, Ronan. He was able to back up a fine run at Cheltenham and go on and just score at Aintree. So he's proven that in the past, and that he can do the, I suppose, Cheltenham Aintree double, at least run well at both.
Yeah, I don't think we need to take much with this. Just a quick one on Jambon. I wasn't actually, I was a bit surprised to hear the kind of clamouring for him to go up and trip. I think Nicky mentioned it after Cheltenham. Look, I think he ran fine. He bumped into just a better horse on the day, and El Fabiolo, a really top prospect. I think Jambon could have jumped better. And he will jump better, possibly on this better ground. This course will suit him, and I still think he'd be there next year in open company over 2 miles. But it seems they want to go over a bit further, so we'll see how he gets on here. He doesn't have much to beat. Not long till May. Interesting that they're coming back down and trip, but the Stage Star didn't exactly do that form much good yesterday on Thursday, and Appreciated didn't exactly boost it either when he ran a Fairyhouse on Sunday. And it's interesting that they're coming back and trip with him. I'm not sure that will suit him. The rest of them are have bundles to find here. So Jambon will get favourite backers off to a winning start, I think.
Yeah, let's move on. Looks a good opportunity for Jambon. 225 at Aintree, Premier Handicap. And one of my old friends in here, lads. It is, of course, Good Time Johnny for Harvey. And he's been given £5, which is, I think on the face of it, is probably lenient enough for his victory at the Cheltenham Festival. Lee McKenna obviously taking £5 off again. if you were to pause the race coming down the hill, what price would you have had Good Time Johnny? I just wonder, will Aintree suit this horse? That'd be my question mark over Good Time Johnny. West Balboa, he's 7-1 in the betting. Mill Green, Steve, you give him a good shout at Cheltenham prior, ran third. Big race from him. Henderson 15-2. Ontoyor is a horse that absolutely loves a bit of nice ground. John and John Junior Jr. That's 8-1. It's 8-1 Outlaw Peter and 10-1 and Bigger the rest. Ronan, we'll start with you on this. Thoughts?
Yeah, much better betting heat this. And the horse you mentioned there for John Joe, I like him a lot. Ontoyor. Like just going into the per temps, he was kept for that all season. After he ran in the shoot first race at the start of the season, that's worked out quite well. He was only beaten 2 3/4 lengths there. They kept him back for the per temps. He got him qualified early, kept him back for that, and then the ground went for him on the day because most of his good form is on good ground, and he still ran a cracker. If you watch that race again, I just watched it again there this morning. Like he met traffic. John Joe O'Neill Jr. met traffic a couple of times up straight, and really kicked on once he got a good run. I'm not saying he would have won, but I could easily see him finish second or third. He was only beaten 4.5 lengths into sixth on ground he probably didn't like. So a much better ground, potentially. It is drying right out at Aintree now. They're talking about, I think they did start watering last night. I give him a big chance here, turn on the form around with Good Time Johnny. He's an 8-1 shot. The other one I wanted to mention quickly, I'm not going to back him, but I was very close to going on the bet slip as well. Ian Williams' horse who won this race last year, Party Business. Like he came miles clear with I like the way you're thinking. And he's been, he's only come back here off £5 higher. There's a lot of chat this year about the British handicapper leniently treating some of the home runners. I think he's possibly a good example. He's only had 2 starts this season and he's come down, all the way back down to 137 again. So he's only £5 higher than he was in this race last season when he came miles clear. I like the way you're thinking. I'd be very surprised if Ian Williams hadn't this race in mind for a long time. So I can see him really going well again. But for my main selection, it's definitely going to be on Ontoyor.
Yeah, you like Steel and Thunder, Mr. Groome. Very strong on him myself on Ontoyor. He's a bit of a £5 swing there with Good Time Johnny, as you mentioned. Traffic problems, you documented that. But also another point I'd make on Ontoyor as well. He was obviously coming off the back of a 145-day absence at Cheltenham. So it was a huge run off the back of that absence. And he's a horse that was very progressive last season in handicaps. He won 4 on the bounce on spring ground. I think there could be more to come from him off his current mark. And on change mark, he was already beaten a total of 4.5 lengths. He gets, has a swing of £5 at the weights with Good Time Johnny. And I think Aintree on nicer ground, the track and the ground is probably going to be more in his favour than Good Time Johnny. So Ontoyor 8-1, I think is a positive. I'll second you on that, Mr. Groome. And I will give a mention for a horse at a big price. It's a big step up in class. He won a Class 4 handicap on his most recent outing. Mexico for Stuart Edmonds. Was that on the list for Steve? You see him giggling.
Well, the pair of you have picked out the 2 British horses that I thought they could go well. Certainly Party Business, but Ronan mentioned, I think he's fairly handicapped. He has been aimed at this race. And I could see him running a big race. And Mexico was really impressive, wasn't it? And I thought, well, at a price, I could see that going well. But whether the Mexico form, going from that type of race, winning at Uttoxeter handicap into this level where you've got that Potemps form is the strongest handicap form, really. And the Good Time Johnny win, I think you can look at that in different ways because it was a bit of a performance. He was like out the back, hampered early on, wasn't he? Out the back, coming down the hill, he was $1 million. In the end, he's won with a deal in hand. But then I'm thinking, well, the race must have just fallen absolutely perfect for him. They've gone a little bit, maybe they've gone a little bit too early in front. They've just stopped a bit, and it's accentuated that impression that he gave. But in saying all that, he's only handicapped similarly to Mill Green, to Ontoyor, who you mentioned, and I wouldn't have a deal to choose between them. How on earth you try and price this up with any great accuracy, I have no idea. But just that prices, the two that you mentioned from Britain, Party Business and Mexico, I would keep a close eye on those. And out of the two of them, I think Party Business will run a decent race. I think he's sure to. Just a reproduction of last season's form puts him thereabouts.
For what it's worth, he was third on the list for me, Party Business. And like, it's obviously, as Ronan quite rightly said, it's probably been the target for a long time with him. Yeah. Mexico, big step up in class, but he absolutely bolted up. And he probably is unexposed at the trip. Mexico, of course.
Backyard are very, very much in form as well at the moment, Barry Stewart Edmonds. They've had a few touches over the last couple of weeks, and his horses are running particularly well.
That was that new Toxner over 2 miles 7. So stepping up in trip again. Mexico, I think quote from Stuart Edmonds on Mexico is he felt as though he'd been running the horse over the wrong trip all season. So interesting. I'm going to side with Ontario and a small saver on Mexico. 14-1, 8-1 for myself. Right, 3 o'clock. Let's move on, lads. It is the Mersey Novices Hurdle, Grade 1. This time for the novices, 15 runners. Looks ultra competitive, but on my notes, Steve, I think the key thing with this particular race is there's lots of pace on. You wore it well. She got her own way in front in the Mayor's Novice Hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival. Thought she was very, very good. Aintree arguably might even suit her that bit better. A big long straight. She's a big galloping mare. She's improving. She has formed a reverse with Hermes Allen, he was disappointing at Cheltenham on the face of it. But there's plenty of pace in the race, and I just wonder with the two of them in here, amongst others, are they going to have their own way in front? Probably not. And that was my angle into the race. I'll give you a selection in a moment. What did you think?
Well, the You Wear It Well form, being a mare, obviously she still gets that £7 now up against the geldings. But if you watched the Challow at Newbury when Hermes Allen beat her, you can't think if Hermes Allen ran to that level, I can't see how You Wear It Well will turn that form around. I don't think she stepped forward that much to win at Cheltenham off of the back of the Challow form. But Hermes Allen as well, what do you do with him? He was really disappointing and was strongly fancied by all accounts. So I was thinking, well, I'll come from outside of that form. But the Irish form, and with Willie Mullins actually running Dark Raven after being beaten in the Supreme, and then I watched that last night, and watching that race, I wouldn't have said the horse would be crying out for further, but the mere fact that he's running it, and again, he would have had lots of horses to choose from. I just feel that the Supreme form itself is the strongest novice form we've got. And stepping up in trip, you can make that argument that the horse could show some improvement. So I marginally favour Dark Raven. The other one I'd mention is the Gary Moore horse, Authorised Speed, who dotted up last time out at Sandown. I think that was a big step up. I think the horse is better on soft ground.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So I would have that as a reservation. So as I say, I was going around in circles a little bit with these because there was nothing outstanding on what they've actually achieved. It's what was going to take a step forward. And I thought out of all of them, Dark Raven is the one that's most likely to step forward, stepping up in trip. It's certainly bred to be more of a stud than it is a 2-miler anyway.
Yeah, his on his bare form or on his history this season, Dark Raven can be ridden both ways, can't he? He can be ridden from the front. He can be ridden in behind. Quite a straightforward individual. I just wonder, is he going to be good enough? I'm surprised you haven't mentioned Springwell Bay, because that's my selection in here at 8-1 each way for John Joe O'Neill and John Joe O'Neill Jr. Form of the yard is actually just the form of the yard is actually quite good at the moment. The horses are running quite well, and we've mentioned Ontario in the 225. But this horse absolutely won with his mouth open, Steve, at Wetherby last time under a double penalty. I like the way he's been campaigned. He's been very gently campaigned, this Springwell Bay. I think we had John Joe O'Neill on the podcast, Junior, at the start of the season. They've always held this horse in very high regard. They've campaigned him gently, and I have a feeling he's up to this level, and I think the race will be run to suit, and he's good form on better ground, which I think will be key. And I think stepping up, he won over 2 miles and 3 furlongs last time. He's stepping up in trip again here, which I think is going to suit. A big straight like Aintree. He was a bumper winner at Market Raisin, had his problems after that. But in terms of the novices from the British side of the equation, the way this race is going to be run, I think 8-1 is very fair here each way in a race that with Boylesports you're going to have an extra place.
Right.
What do you think, Ronan?
I agree. I like the horse. He was on my short list. I was hoping for a bit bigger than 8-1 when I eventually did my kind of tissue for the race. You're right. He won easily at Wetherby. He did a good time at Ascot. Probably more impressive there. And he's unexposed. But what you get, it's all potential with him, I guess. Yeah. Whereas the top four, you're dealing with more solid form. And I thought we'd get a bit more in the price. I want a bit more compromising his price or to take a chance on him. I'm a bit like Steve. I find myself going around in circles of the race, and when that starts happening, you probably need to leave it alone. Hermes Allen was punted off the boards at Cheltenham like he was already home, and then disappointed. So that was just strange. I couldn't get my head around that when it was happening, because I was against him a lot. But when I was seeing that, the weight and money for him, the weight and money it takes for a horse to come in like he did at Cheltenham is hugely significant. So a keen eye on what he does here. I think Dark Raven and Irish Point are quite closely matched. I'd probably side with Irish Point out of those two. I think his form over 2.5 miles is a bit better. And look, we'll see what Lucia does today with regards to the form for the mares novices. That could give you a bit of a boost for You Wear It Well if you like that mare. But I personally think that they probably had a hard race in that contest because all those mares went on Fairyhouse and ran quite poorly. So it's a no bet race for me. I wouldn't put you off Springwell Bay. I just was hoping for a bit better of price.
Well, the horse he's beat doing handstands, as I mentioned, was Hurricane Highway, who's probably unexposed himself. He's only had 3 runs for Evan Williams, an official rating of 126. He bet him, Springwell Bay bet him by a length in 3 parts. He could have bet him by 20 lengths if he wanted. It was a very impressive performance, I thought, under the double penalty, conceding weight. And I think he's up to this level, so going to stick with Springwell Bay. Quite sweet on him, actually, and 8-1 each way. Right, lads, it is probably one of the, well, it's not the featured race because we're going to come on to the National a little bit later on in the podcast. But the Liverpool Hurdle over 3 miles, really interesting race. 10 runners. Steve, you were very sweet on Marie's Rock heading into Cheltenham. She's 4-1 at the top of the market. It's 4-1 to field. Looks competitive. But I suppose the one thing to say about this particular race is there's been a couple in here to know. Flooring Porter, Sire de Burley, Home by the Lee, and Dashel Drasher have had an absolute war of attrition at Cheltenham. I'm not sure Marie's Rock has.
But she was really disappointing at Cheltenham, wasn't she? Way below her level. And now they're going up.
What do you put that down to?
God knows. They didn't put anything forward, did they? I don't think the stewards inquired. They did inquire into the performance of Hermes Allen in the previous race, I know, and I think the trainer said it was sticky ground. But as far as Marie's Rock's concerned, I don't know why she's favourite. That puzzles me. I think there's half a dozen other horses that have got stronger 3-mile form than Marie's Rock. She is the one that's stepping up to 3 miles that could show some improvement, but then you're factoring in, well, that could well happen, but off the back of that performance at Cheltenham, I don't know why she should be favourite. But if I removed her from the race and then thinking, right, where do we go with the others? And there's not a couple of lengths between half a dozen of them, is there? Go off the Cheltenham form, as you've just said. They've had hard races there. I see they've put the cheek pieces on Dashel Drasher now. That might just get a tiny bit of improvement out of him, but he's always seemed to me to be a thoroughly genuine horse that does seem to do his best. So I'm not too sure that will work. And then watching the race at Cheltenham again last night, I looked at Home by the Lee initially because he made a little bit of a mistake on the far side, was taken wide throughout, but then was ridden coming into the straight and looked as if he'd go backwards. But he did stay on again up the running, which it wasn't said in the official form book it said that he weakened on the flat. When I watched that again, he was sticking on the flat. The bottom line is, Barry, I wanted to be against Marie's Rock because she's favourite, but I couldn't narrow down the others. I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 5 of them there, not including Champ. Champ's coming back and coming into this a fresh horse, but he's form ties in this season with Paisley Park. Paisley Park hasn't been running particularly well, except against Champ. So that form might be slightly suspect. And as with the previous race, I was going round in ever decreasing circles with this one. And I didn't really fancy anything to be betting. If Marie's Rock comes in for plenty of market support, I might take a chance and just be against her.
Okay. Ronan, what do you think?
It's another one I'm going around in circles with, Basil, to be honest. So, look, Marie's Rock, why they didn't go for the stairs?
Oh, he's dead again.
Apologies for falling over here. The race has got me a knot, so that's what's happening to the camera.
Have you a strong opinion on this?
No, and so I'm not going to take much of your time, but just a quick word on Marie's Rock. I don't know why they didn't go for the stairs. I was just trying to Google that there too, because I can't remember exactly what the reason was.
Chickened out of it.
It was a poor decision because the mares was always. I remember thinking at the time they have to go for the stairs with the allowance there. It looked a softer race than the mares in general. And what happened to her in the mares, I'm nearly sure, was she just didn't settle off a slow pace.
Oh, Ronan, I couldn't agree more with you. And I think that's has to be a big factor in as to why she's finished where she has. And go on, I interrupted. Continue.
Yeah, no, like you might. I don't know if you fancy her, but I think that's definitely what happened. It happened to Echoes and Rain in the race as well. She just couldn't. They just went slow up front. Love Envoy and Honeysuckle was in the right place. Like, you're getting a chance to back her over 3 miles here now. Should she be favourite? I don't know. Flooring Porter is very interesting. Obviously, second in the race last year. It probably might have been like if you think before Cheltenham, he had a bit of a setback. He was off the track a good bit. Didn't have his usual preparation. He wasn't beaten that far.
No.
Could he get a bit more of a march on them here on better ground? That could be an angle into the race as well. But I'm not. It's a no bet race for me. Basil, so let you take it away.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you about Marie's Rock. How I think she pulled her chances away very early in the race. They went an absolute dawdle in the mares. Like you, I was hoping they'd run her in the stairs. Getting £7 off this lot, I think she's very, very dangerous. And I think she'll get a strong pace early with Flooring Porter. I think that's the key bit here. Obviously, she's stepping up in trip, but they're going to go hard with Flooring Porter in the race. He probably went too hard in Cheltenham, has ran very well, considering, as you mentioned, the setback he's had. She'll get a strong pace in here at Aintree, on a little bit of nicer ground, over 3 miles. I put down her performance at Cheltenham too. She was just far too keen early in a slow run race. And like that, like as you mentioned, Echoes and Rain went into the tracker. She was quite similar in the race. As you mentioned, you're getting an opportunity to back her at 4-1. I think that's fair. I think if this race was priced up prior to Cheltenham, she's 9-4, 5-2. So I'm willing to take the chance here at 4-1. The rest of them have had gruelers at Cheltenham. Flooring Porter has went very, very hard. Wouldn't surprise me if he ran another massive race here. Sire de Burley home by the lead. Dashel Drasher, Champ. If she runs a race here, which I think the race will be run to suit her, I can't see how they beat her over 3 miles at Aintree on good to soft ground. So that's just my view. On her breeding, she'll get 3 miles. But
Barry, she has to prove that she stays that trip.
Yeah.
You both said about her pulling hard. Is there any guarantee at a 3 mile pace, even though this should be more strongly run, is there any guarantee that she's going to settle? Not really. And if she does settle, fine. But if she does settle, will she get the trip on a form that she's actually achieved? She's what's she got to find? £10 so with these? So she gets the mayor's allowance. I'll take that all on board. But really, should she be a shorter price than horses that have run in the 3 mile championship race at Cheltenham? And she's got that all to prove. So it purely is on. I think it's purely on potential. on what she may do, whereas the others have actually achieved. And what would give her a better chance? You know, they're the reservations with her. If you look at a horse such as Champ, he's got some top-class staying form and they're coming back from a stable that's absolutely firing again with the winners they had yesterday. It's just the price. I'm not saying she can't win, obviously. What I'm saying is, should she be that type of price when you compare what she's achieved to the other horses in the race? And I can't think that she should be.
We're going to crack on to the Handicap Chase. It's the race before the GrandNational, over 3 miles and a furlong. Couple of old flames in here. Steve, what did you make of it?
What did I make of this one? This is another one where there's nothing that's actually that the two horses. There's only 2 horses that actually come into the race, which I think are guaranteed to stay and are in form. And they're Captain the Lily of Venetia Williams and Coconut Splash, who I didn't think would stay, but ran over 3 miles at Hereford and did get the trip. Seemed to see it out pretty well. So they were 2 horses at double figure prices. I thought, well, at least they're in form. The other horses that obviously I think could well improve stepping up in trip, the unexposed ones. You got Nassalam of Gary Moore's. You got Shake 'em Up Harry, who ran well, but will he actually get this trip? And Canando Cueto's another horse that was running really well early on in the season, came back from a break and ran a shocker at Ascot. But that's this race where I'm going round in circles. I went down, I'm looking at Midnight River, who on the face of it disappointed at Cheltenham. He's had breathing ops in the past, a couple of breathing ops. They've put a tongue tie on for the first time. The pick of his form and being trained by Skelton as well leads me to believe that he could run a race. So I was left with, to summarise, Captain the Lily, I thought would run a race. I'm not sure she's handicapped to win, but she is in form. She does get the trip. And I thought, I think she's around a 14, 16 to 1 shot.
16 to 1, yeah.
Right. I think she could go well at that type of price. But to have a pick in the race, it would be Midnight River.
Midnight River and Cap the Lily for Steve. Steve, you mentioned Shake 'em Up Harry. Now, this is horse, obviously, we put forward for the plate. And yeah, the trip is obviously maybe a slight question mark. Hasn't run over this trip before. He's run an absolute cracker in the plate, hasn't he? He's only gone up a pound for finishing 3rd. He's only had 3 runs over fences this season, so he's been quite lightly campaigned and ran a belter in the Red Rum at Aintree at this particular festival last season over 2 miles. So it's talk about chalk and cheese in terms of trips. 3 miles, look, you're getting 7 to 1 about the horse. I think he's the type of horse you'd love to own, isn't he? If you're going to the races and you want a day out and you want a good run for your money, Shake 'em Up Harry is the proper type of profile that you want. He'd be up there on the pace. He'd be prominent. He jumps so well. I think Aintree as a track is going to suit him a lot. You know, he'll be able to use his big stride. We put him up as a horse to follow at the start of the season, Ronan. I thought he was well handicapped off 138. He's ran a cracker, probably run into 1 or 2 at Cheltenham, stepping up in trip at Aintree, a course that he's run well at in the past. I'm going to back him at 7 to 1 here. Plenty in with chances, Ronan, but I'm sticking with Shake 'em Up Harry off 140, stepping up in trip. I think he's unexposed over the distance as well.
He's definitely unexposed over the distance. I don't think he's ever gone 3 miles, but I'd have a question mark over whether he stays it significantly with him. Usually with a horse like that, I tend to take a chance that it either goes one way when you're going up in trip. A lot of the time you either stay and then that brings out extra improvement, or you don't stay and then it's lights out. I'd be tending to go with the latter option there with him, or siding towards that way. Look, this race is completely different than it was last year. Last year was chock full of really possibly well handicapped horses like Chamblou and unexposed horses, Oscar Elite, Espoir de Rame, all in-form horses coming into it. This year, you're looking at it and going, you're kind of scratching your head with the main horses at the top of the market there, wondering where they're at. You couldn't be sure, and that's why they're going 5 to 1 in the field. The one I liked, Eldorado Ellen made some appeal to me. He's been given a bit of a chance by the handicapper coming back into this off 158. He's classy enough on his day, but I just think he might have had a hard race in the Gold Cup, so that just put me off at 6 to 1. Steve mentioned the one I like is Coconut Splash. Like he's £2 wrong here, but he still gets in. I would be willing to, forgo that £2 for his profile because he was second to City Chief last time at Hereford. As Steve said, I think he did stay that day. He's just met a better horse. City Chief went on and won the Grade 2 Towton next time out, so it's not bad form. Before that, he's got quite a good record over fences. He'd been 4 seconds and 4 thirds, so he runs consistently. But he's getting another go at 3 miles here. Now that they know he's stayed, possibly they can ride him a bit more forcefully if they want to, or be more confident in his ability to stay. And he just stuck out as a horse who's ran well last time, unexposed over the trip, unexposed in general. And I believe he was, towards the start of his career, he was quite well touted as he's going to be a good horse, and maybe it just hasn't worked out for him. He's an 8-year-old now, but he hasn't had many runs. He just stuck out here in a race. As I said, there's a lot of question marks over a lot of them. And you're getting 12-1, a double figure price about this fella, unexposed type. So could be better than a mark of 130. So I'd be willing to take a chance on him.
Download the Boylesports app and receive generous offers for new and existing customers. Boylesports, this is betting.
Right, lads, time to move on to the biggest national hunt race of the year in many people's eyes. The GrandNational Handicap Chase, 4 miles, 2 furlongs, Class 1 handicap. What a race it is. A couple of little stats for you. 5 of the last 6 winners, Steve, have been trained in Ireland. 12 of the last 14 had not previously run in the Aintree National. 7-year-olds, until recent times, have had a pretty poor record in the race. Noble Yates was the first 7-year-old to win since 1940, would you believe? And just one that did stick out as well. 8 of the last 10 winners had been previously ridden by their jockey prior. So I think you need a horse for this particular race that jumps, that stays, that their jockey gets on with the horse, that knows the horse. And I think when we were discussing this race last week, Steve, or earlier on this week, should I say, a jockey that's ridden over the fences prior is a massive plus.
It is, and you put up 2 horses to me, which I will let you tell everybody that's looking. I'll leave that with you, but you made solid cases for the pair of them. The fact is, you can make solid cases for a great many of them, I think. Obviously, the vast majority have just had this as their aim all season. When I've looked through, they look to be plenty of horses that you would say, yeah, they're on fair handicap marks, look as if they should stay. I think in years gone by, this track was so different from anywhere else that it was paramount that you could jump and jump well and jump with a particular technique. That's not the case now. Since the course has been modified, you're getting a higher class, even over this trip. It's a higher class, quicker type of horse. You've not got the plodders. So that, I think some of the old stats, therefore, are pretty much a waste of time. The more recent stats, they're worth taking on. But I think the 7-year-olds, because they're progressive, it just makes this, up until 10, 12 years ago, I always thought I had a good chance in the National of narrowing it down to at least 3 or 4 horses. This race, I can't narrow down. If I'm perfectly honest with you, there's plenty of horses that I like. I don't know. Are they betting on what price is an Irish winner? How are they betting on that? But again, they look to have numerically. You've got such a strong hold on it, and then quality-wise, you've got so many unexposed potential improvers, as I say, that have been aimed here. From a betting perspective, to me, it makes zero appeal. From a watching perspective, as an enthusiast of national hunt racing, it is an absolutely fantastic race. So I'm going to listen to your arguments, Barry, and also Ronan's, and see what you fancy.
Oh, he's given us the easy task, Mr. Groome. We're going to have a look just at the betting, obviously. Just a couple of little things to mention about the race. Corrick Rambler, a current favourite. Obviously, we had the injury worries for Derek Fox. It looks like he might just make it through now and take the ride on Corrick Rambler, who Ronan Groome is officially £10 well in. He's the 8-1 favourite, joint favourite now with Boylesports for the National. Delta Works 8-1. Noble Yates 8-1. He carries £20 more this season if he's to win it again than he did when winning it last season. The first 7-year-old, of course, since 1940 to win the National. And we have Galler de Menil priced up. Cheltenham winner 12-1. Mr. Incredible, the quirky old sort. 12-1. Brian Hayes comes in for the ride there. And Ain't That a Shame has been very strong in the market. 14-1. 14-1 Lamilas. Longhouse Port 14s. And a 16-1. And bigger the rest, Ronan Groome. What wins the 2023 Grand National? Tell me, please.
Oh, God, yeah. Like... It's a changed race, isn't it? Now it's not the race it used to be, and I think punters are coming around to that. You don't need this big, massive jumper, big proven stayer experience. I think Noble Yates showed last year that you can be unexposed now. They're because the fences are so soft. They're not the big towering things that needs to be jumped before. The middle of them is taken out. It's just like it's become more like a normal big marathon handicap chase. So with that in mind, I'm trying to my short list is horses that are kind of unexposed, could be better than their marks. I'm not worried about experience and that sort of thing. Ain't That a Shame was right up there, and I'd done this short list before I'd looked at the betting, which is what I always do. I try to price the race myself. And I'm not surprised to see him in so short, as in Rachel Blackmore's riding him, and will probably be well backed on the day for that fact alone, because it's the Grand National, because you have once-a-year punters and that sort of thing. The two that then I've kind of come down on, I've been looking for a bit more value, and Vanillier was one for Gavin Cromwell. Don't tell me you're putting up Vanillier as well.
My strongest fancy of the National run, but go on, continue.
Okay, well, listen, I'll let you make the case for Vanillier, because there's a good chance you'll make the same points as me. And the other one I liked was Our Power for Sam Thomas, Sam Twist and Davies. He's well in. So is Vanillier, actually. Both well in on their marks, officially off the British ratings. And Our Power has been 2 from 2 this season. He's got to prove his stamina up a trip, but as I said, I think you can bat two ways there. You can bat that he'll improve for that, and he does, and then you get that improvement, or he goes the other way. But I'll be willing to take a chance that he will prosper over this sort of trip. As I said, he's 2 from 2 this season. He's 4 from 8 in general over fences. Only 8 starts over fences, and I thought he put up 2 really strong staying performances. He was a big fancy for the Hennessy, or for the Coral Gold Cup earlier in the season, when he won at Ascot, basically not fit. And he missed that race for whatever reason, and he came back then off a 120-day break and won again at Kempton. I just think he's in really good shape this season. As I said already this week, Sam Thomas is a trainer I always looked in these big races. And Vanillier, obviously, I'll let you jump in here, but he's well in also on his run at Fairyhouse, and always promised to be a good horse. Vanillier, the Albert Bartlett winner of whatever many years ago, and look, if he can jump around and get into a rhythm, his jumping has been the problem with him, but if he can get going, I think there's an awful lot of talent there, and I think he could be better than a mark of 147 that he gets in off here.
Yeah, 100% agree. Not with Our Power, with Vanillier. You mentioned the Albert Bartlett, obviously a great winner of a hurdles. He always promised quite a lot. Gavin Cromwell just mentioned in a recent interview that even from his novice hurdle days, he always saw this horse as a real national type. And it's taken a while for the penny to drop over fences, really, hasn't it? I mean, he has a lovely profile for the race. 9 runs in total over fences, 1 victory, 5 places. So he's always been thereabouts. You mentioned his jumping. That's something that I think they've started to iron out. I mean, Paul Carberry reports that he's been doing a lot of schooling with the horse. So, this has been the target for God knows how long, the Grand National. And if you watch his jumping at Fairyhouse, he's actually getting off the ground a lot higher than he did previously. I know you mentioned today's GrandNational winners. You need to be able to, jump maybe a little bit more economically. But I think his jumping has improved a lot this season. I think you saw that in his Fairyhouse run last time in the Bobby Joe Chase. You mentioned he's well in at the weights. I mean, it was an incredible performance, really. He was only beaten half a length, and he gave £8 to the 157 rated Kenboy. So if he was £20 wrong officially when you actually looked at his rating and where he finished, and for him to be only beaten a half a length, I thought it was a huge run. I mentioned about Jimmy's Keith, who obviously the weight would be a question mark. He's a lovely racing weight, 10 stone 6. Stamina is definitely not going to be an issue with this horse. He uses stamina. So Sean Flanagan has obviously ridden the horse before, very experienced rider. And I think Vanillier, of the horses from this side of the water, and I put him up as my strongest fancy in the national, Vanillier, I think 16-1, I think is more than fair. Going into the season, if you were to say national to me, the one question mark I would have been about the horse was his jumping. But if you watch back his last couple of runs, he's been campaigned over 2.5 earlier in the season. Obviously ran into John Durkin. His most recent effort at Fairyhouse, I thought his jumping was very, very good. So lovely profile for the race. The other one I want to mention is Velvet Elvis. Now, he was a horse to follow at the start of the season. I had him down on the short list to win the Tri-Town Chase at the start of the year. He's ended up, I think Tom Gibney had him down to win the Aintree National. So this has been the plan for quite some time with this horse. Ran an absolute cracker in the Irish National last season to finish 6th. And in terms of the profile of the horse, he's had 10 runs over fences. So he's exactly where you need to be as a proven handicap chaser going into a national. He's run very well in big field handicaps. Seems to be coming to the Boyle now at the right time as well. Had a couple of disappointing efforts on soft ground before the turn of the year. But, I think with this target being confirmed for quite some time from Tom Gibney, if you actually look at the horse, his run at Navan on his most recent start, I suppose he was receiving £3 off any second now at Navan. He receives £20 off him at Aintree, and we know how any second now ran in the national last year. So I think that's really decent form. Darragh O'Keefe, a jockey that knows the horse very, very well, takes the ride, finished 6th in the national last year with Longhouse Poets, has been around the big fences, and he's run him 10 times in his 17 career starts. So lovely profile for the race. Maybe slightly unfashionable coming from Tom Gibney's yard in terms of an Aintree national. He won, of course, the Irish National with Liam the Barney all those years ago. So he's able to get one ready for these big handicaps. Velvet Elvis, 33-1. 2 horses run a Groome from County Meath. Is it coming home to the Royal County?
Could be. Gordon's got a good few in there anyway. So yeah, we could have another one.
2 bullets, Vanillier 16s and 33-1. You're siding with Ronan Groome finally for the national?
Yeah, I'm going to side with Vanillier and our par, and I'll be doing a lot of box forecast and stuff like that as well, with a few longer price runners. But they're my 2 main bets. Yeah.
Steve, final word on the national for you. Anything?
I'll be watching the 4 horses you've highlighted with great interest, and maybe even have a couple of quid on the biggest price ones.
Super. Right, lads, the concluding race at Aintree on day 3 and of the festival. It is the graded bumper race. Lots in with chances. I don't know who to come to here for the 620, whether it's going to be Ronan or Steve. Steve, you've drawn the short straw. In you get.
All right, it's I did watch the Cheltenham bumper. So the one that comes out top there's Captain Cody, finished 6th in that. He looked just a stayer to me. Didn't look to have too much in the way of pace. Kept on well after being outpaced. But the lightly raced horses, all I would, the race makes zero appeal to me to get involved financially. But habitually, you've got some really decent horses that perform in this race. So if there's no interest in it punting wise today, when they run, I think it's a race always worth watching and just picking up what you may think that are run well going forward to hurdles next season. Because I'm sure there'll be at least half a dozen, if not more, of these horses that will make up into really decent novice hurdlers, stroke chasers in their careers. So an interesting race, punting wise, not for me, I'm afraid.
Okay, I'm going to mention one at a double figure price, similar to yourself, Steve. Not a massive financial interest here, but this is a horse that went into the tracker Ronan Groome on our Road to Cheltenham Challenge series. He was put into the tracker on the series. The horse is called Florida Dreams for Nicky Richards, whose yard is absolutely humming at the moment. Coming down from the north of England, Nicky Richards here. Florida Dreams hasn't been seen for 102 days since the one career start. Was very, very green early in the race at Musselburgh, but got up to beat Active Authority, who was well regarded by the Ollie Murphy stable at the start of the year by 2.5 lengths. Took him an age to get rolling in the straight at Musselburgh and came home like an absolute steam train. It was an eye-catching run for me. He's probably going to be underestimated coming into a bumper like this. You know, Willie Mullins is a couple in here at the top of the market, plenty of Irish interest. And I just think this horse could be quite smart. But son of Doyle didn't come from the point-to-point scene, was a store horse. Is a 5-year-old who hasn't had a run since winning on debut, went off 11-1. I thought it was a smart performance, went straight into the tracker afterwards. He's 14-1. Yard is going well. Danny McMenamin takes the right. Florida Dreams, if someone wanted to have an each-way play at a double-figure price in the bumper. Blizzard of Oz, he was impressive the last day though, wasn't he, Ronan?
He was good enough, yeah. To be honest, I have very little opinion on the race. I might have a couple of quid on your horse there, Basil, for the crack. But I think if it's all gone Pete Tong for you in the GrandNational, if you've had a bet in the GrandNational and it's not gone well, I wouldn't be relying on coming into this race now. For I think 6-1 the field in a big field bumper at Aintree is stuff of nightmares, to be honest.
I have to say, when I came to the conclusions on day 3 of the Aintree Festival, I felt like Rory McIlroy heading into the Masters. Felt my game was coming right at the right time. There was plenty on the card. I'm quite confident about Saturday, lads. Let's see if I can perform better than McIlroy did in the Masters. But it's been a pleasure looking ahead to all the Aintree racing with you, lads. Steve, just a plug for the website as well. If anyone does want to get in touch with Steve, obviously he's been in this game a long, long time and putting in lots of work on a daily basis for the last 33 years. It's a marathon, as I'm told, not a sprint. Details on screen. Mr. Groome, I wish you the very best. Where will you be watching Aintree GrandNational Day?
I might actually slip down to the pub to watch it, believe it or not, down the local here, and get a bit of crack and atmosphere going. So usually should be a bit of crack for the GrandNational. You'd hope you'd find one where it's on. You definitely will in Dublin anyway. So we'll that's what we do. Absolutely.
Right, lads, that concludes episode number 46 of the season. Make sure to get your selections down below for day 3 of the Aintree Festival. Let us know your GrandNational picks. And congratulations once again to Russell Stanton, who was a winner of a £20 or euro free bet with Boylesports, with his 3 winners on the card on Aintree day 1. Look forward to day 2 today and to seeing how it pans out on day 3. Make sure and subscribe to the channel and like the video if you're new around here. And we will see you next week for air.
Inside the final